Technology changes the world, but not on its own. Hardware needs heart. Software needs soul. When we match compute power to instinct and acceleration to imagination, tomorrow comes alive. We make processing powerful and computing adaptive to inspire great leaps, fight new battles, and ignite AI. For us, it's not what we achieve alone, but sharing a vision to solve the world's most important challenges. Because together, anything is possible. AMD, together we advance.
Thank you. Good morning, and welcome to AI DevCon. My name is Ian Ferreira, and I work on AI in the data center GPU team. So before we get started, with a show of hands, who's familiar with AI Instinct GPUs, the AMD Instinct GPUs? Nobody, one person. Okay, that's good. So before we get started, I wanted to go over our mission, which is really to help people like you in this room solve some of the world's most important challenges. And we have a three-pronged approach. The first is performance. We need to make sure we can support the ever-growing larger models with trainable parameters now in excess of 1 trillion. The second is around being able to be responsible, so making sure we reduce our environmental impact as we do AI research. And the last is around being inclusive, making sure that with our competitive pricing, with our open software stack, that we can be as inclusive as possible with AI. So before we get started on the AI side, I wanted to just talk about our heritage in high-performance computing. So today, with our partnership with Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, we have positions 1, 3, and 10 in the top 500 supercomputing rank, including number 1, which is Frontier. Not only is Frontier the world's first exascale supercomputer, it's also more powerful than the next 7 combined. So it's a nominal step function in processing. If you look at the green 500 list, we have positions 1, 2, 3, and 4, kind of in tune with our tenet around responsible computing. So why I wanted to show this, because this is a great segue and helps us transition into AI. Okay, so when we talk about AI, we're going to talk about hardware, and then we're going to talk about software. So I'll start with the hardware real quick. I know you guys are all data scientists, so this might be a little boring, but I'll go through this real quick. So we started our journey in 2017 with the MI25, but really the CDNA architecture was announced in 2020 with the MI100. This year, 2022, we released the 200 family. That's what is used by the Frontier supercomputer, by the way. And then we're on track for the MI300 next year. So if you look at the 200 family, it comes in 2 form factors. The first is the OEM form factor, which is the Open Accelerator module. That's used for hyperscalers, high-density computing. We also have a PCIe form factor for traditional servers. So double-click on the MI250, you can see that it has 2 CDNA 2 dies on board. These are connected with 400 gigabits interconnect. We have 128 gigabytes of HBM2 memory on board, which is great for large language models, and a total bandwidth of 3.2 terabytes. If you look at the 210, which is the PCIe version, this has 64 gigabytes of HBM memory, 1 CDNA 2 core, and as well as the ability to create these connected hives with infinity link across the top. So you can see the slots across the top there. Really nice to create highly connected, high-speed connected PCIe hives. Okay, so you're saying, that's great, I'm a data scientist, what does it mean? Well, if you look at brute performance from sequences or images per second, we are 1.4 times the performance of an A100 80 gigabyte. So this is not just from one specific model, it's all the way from natural language processing, BERT, et cetera, to computer vision, DenseNet, ResNet. And so finally, we have some competition in the GPU marketplace, and I'm really excited about that. Okay, switching gears to software. I know this is what you guys care about. So I want to talk about ROCm. ROCm is our open software stack. So it's open, that's the first thing to understand. So if you look at the top of the stack, you have your ML frameworks, TensorFlow, PyTorch, JAX, Onyx. Beneath that, we have our programming models, OpenMP, OpenCI, and HIP, which is our Port 2 product. Below that, we have our traditional core libraries, your BLAST libraries, your collective communication libraries, solvers, sparse libraries. And then we also have compilers, performance profilers, as well as data management tools. So you guys are all practitioners, so I'm going to focus in on the top row. So A, TensorFlow support. This is drop-in support. So you can literally take your notebook that you've run on another GPU and actually run it on AMD GPUs. There's no recompilation, nothing. It just works. And we've worked with Google to upstream this. So you can actually go to the Google repo and install TensorFlow for ROCm. The same with PyTorch. We worked with Meta and now the PyTorch Foundation to upstream support for PyTorch. And then we're working with Google on JAX, which is their up-and-coming language. Anybody here use JAX? Nobody? Okay. So JAX is kind of their new attempt to kind of compete with PyTorch. From a distributed machine learning point of view, we have support for deep speed, which is what most of the large models that you see today was used to train with. As well as Horovod for TensorFlow, which was developed by Uber before it was open sourced. So really good support of all the frameworks that you might be using today. We also have support for CuPy, which is a NumPy accelerated version. Okay, so how do we do this? All of our innovation is through partnerships. We don't go off and decide we're going to build something. We work with partners. So the support that you see today on Onyx, the support that you see today on DeepSpeed was all co-developed with Microsoft. So Microsoft is using AMD GPUs in some of their largest internal workloads. It's important to understand. The same with PyTorch, working with the PyTorch Foundation, and before that, Facebook, you get that support in. And then last but not least, working with ISVs. So I don't know if you guys know Professor Andrew Ng. You might have taken some of his courses. He created a startup called Landing, and what they do is they do computer vision defect detection. So we've worked with them on that as well. This is just a slide that talks about how excited and honored we are to be part of the PyTorch Foundation. PyTorch, in the time I've been involved in machine learning, it was something that was used in academia. Everybody is using TensorFlow, and so right now it's completely reversed. Most people are using PyTorch. It's a remarkable speed at which they've grown. So if you do have access to an AMD GPU, you can go to our Infinity Hub repo, container repo, and you can pull down an image, whether it's TensorFlow, PyTorch, and you can start running workloads out of the box, okay? If you do not have access to an AMD GPU, we have a cloud service that allows you to sign up, then pick a framework. You can say, hey, I want to run PyTorch 1.12 on ROCm 5.2. Then you can pick what GPU target you want. Maybe you want to run on a 210, maybe run on 250. And then in a few seconds, you'll be in an environment that looks a lot like SageMaker or Colab. So really simple. And you can take your notebooks, you can take your Python scripts and run them directly on an AMD GPU to see for yourself how easy it is, and you can measure for yourself the performance. I want to call out the work that is happening with KT Cloud and Moray. They've done this technology which virtualizes GPUs. It's really exciting. It helps make large language model training easier. So what they've done is they make your programming environment look like a local GPU, but in the back they actually have a bank of GPUs. So you really get to access multiple GPUs as simple as using one GPU. Can you guys keep up with the translation? Okay. So I wanted to zoom out and just look at AI across AMD. So we have this initiative called Pervasive AI. So before the recent acquisitions, we mostly participated in the data center space, in digital home, and cloud data center, retail and commerce. If you fast forward post the acquisitions of Pensando and Xilinx, you can see that we've now broadened our impact, including a lot of what's called edge AI use cases. So all the smart cities, smart industry, we have telco, 5G, healthcare, telecommunications. We also have automotive. So we've really broadened our workloads that we can support on AMD's infrastructure. And what's fascinating about this is they all tie back to the data center. If you think about it, all these edge devices are going to be running models, collecting data. The data is going to get uploaded into the cloud. The models are going to get retrained, quantized, pruned, and pushed down back to the edge. So you have this symbiotic relationship between the data center, the AI cloud, and the AI edge. We also have some work to do on our software stack, right? So now we've talked about ROCm, but there's a similar stack that's on the EPYC CPUs using ZenDNN. And when we have a similar stack on the AMD Xilinx side called Vitis. So what we're doing is we're building a unified inferencing layer to make it easier for models that are trained to run on any one of these devices. So the first release is just creating a shim across these devices. And then the second release is adding deeper down the stack, including graph compilation, as well as introducing something called XDNA capabilities into our CPUs. So as you can see, we are really excited about the broad offering we have at AMD, everything from CPU, GPU, FPGAs to DPUs. And what that allows us to do is really work the AI landscape from the data center all the way down to the edge. Okay, finally, to close, I wanted to share some information about the MI300. This is the world's first data center APU. It's really exciting. Why? Because it has 2 Zen 4 cores and CDNA 3 GPU cores on one chip. So if you've ever done any sort of profiling on any machine learning workloads, you'll notice that you spend a lot of time copying data from the host into the GPU memory and then blah, blah, blah. So you do that back and forth. With this, it's super easy because it's all on the same die. There's also significant power improvements when you have a combined device versus 2 discrete devices. So I'm personally really excited about the MI300. And you can see that we're projecting an 8x increase in training speed over the 250. So you can imagine this is pretty substantial improvements. So with that, I wanted to make sure that I thank you guys for your time and thank our gracious host, KT, for the opportunity to speak to you guys this morning. I know it's still early, and I speak fast, so I don't know how much of that you got, but I hope you got the gist of it. I look forward working to you guys. If you need to contact me, my email is ian.ferreira@amd.com, ian.ferreira@amd.com. I look forward to working with all of you and have a fantastic, fabulous conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ferreira, for your informative presentation. 네, 첫 번째로 키노트 스피치를 해주셨습니다. 잘 들으셨죠? 생각보다 되게 축약적으로 짧게 해주신 것 같습니다. 여러분 들으시면서 굉장히 궁금한 점들이 생기셨을 것 같은데요. 질문을 한번 받아보도록 하겠습니다. Without further ado, we would like to carry out a short Q&A session with our audience related to your presentation and solutions. 네, 이번에는 아무래도 영어 연사분이시기 때문에 영어로 질문을 받아보도록 하겠습니다. 질문이 있으신 분들께서는 손을 들어주시면 저희가 마이크를 전달해 드리도록 하겠습니다. 질문을 하실 때는 네, 일어서서 해주시기 바라겠습니다. Yes, we're going to carry out a Q&A session and he's going to ask a question in English.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Impressive presentation. On timetable, next presentation is NVIDIA. Still, NVIDIA GPU is popular. So compared to NVIDIA GPU, what is the key competitiveness compared to NVIDIA GPU?
I think, so the first to understand, we way behind, right? We started in 2017 and NVIDIA started in 2010. So you have to keep that in mind. I think right now there's a performance improvement over the A100, but I expect that there's going to be this ebb and flow between generations. I think maybe they'll be faster once the release and we're faster the next. But the exciting thing is that there is competition. For the first time in I think 15 years, there's somebody that's actually capable of competing with NVIDIA on a performance point of view. And I think that's great for the industry. That's fantastic news for everybody in this room.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. 네. 엔비디아와 다음에 있을 발표에 대해서 비교를 해주시면서 이 업계에서 사실 경쟁이 된다는 것 자체가 중요한 일이고 의미 있는 일이고 아무래도 후발주자이기 때문에 라는 설명을 잘 해주신 것 같습니다. 혹시 추가적으로 질문 있으실까요? 저희가 질문 하나 정도 더 받아보도록 하겠습니다. 자리에서 일어나셔서 발표를 해주시면 되겠습니다. Anyone who would like to ask a question? 네, 아무래도 발표가 워낙 충실하셔서 그런 것 같습니다. I think your coverage in the presentation is quite good. There's no questions from the audience. Oh, yes, there you go. Thank you. 네, 여기 앞에 계신 분께 마이크 전달 부탁드리겠습니다.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ian. Your presentation is very impressive for us. But as you mentioned, we have a great business with the AMD GPU. However, it's very hard for us to overcome the NVIDIA ecosystems. So do you have any strategy to overcome the GPU ecosystems?
Yes, absolutely. And we understand that, again, NVIDIA started 10 years before us. We're using an open source fueled ecosystem versus hiring an army of software engineers. So it is a little slower. We are absolutely doubling down and building out the ecosystem. You can see that now with PyTorch Foundation, with SDKs for specific verticals. But absolutely, we're doubling down and building out the ecosystem. We understand that that's one of the big barriers in broad adoption.
Do you have any plan to compete against the CUDA?
So ROCm technically is the equivalent of CUDA. And so if you wanted to code against the CUDA libraries, there's an equivalent called ROCm. So if you think about every library in the CUDA stack, there's a similar one in the AMD's ROCm stack. What we're finding is that most practitioners actually work at the frameworks level. So you're going to find a lot more engineers are going to work at the frameworks and above. So if you look at Hugging Face, it works on PyTorch. If you look at Mosaic ML, they work on PyTorch. The stuff Moray did works on PyTorch. So fewer and fewer engineers are coding against CUDA because they also want to de-risk their own applications, right? If you code against CUDA, you have what's called vendor lock-in. So you're basically stuck with CUDA. And so a lot of people are trying to code at a higher level. Even some of the hyperscalers are investing in layers that disintermediate the GPUs so that they can run their hyperscale cloud providers without being tied to a specific GPU. Because if you write all this code for a specific platform, it becomes harder for you then to have a choice conversation.
네, 질문에 대답이 되셨을지요? 네, 감사합니다. 생태계를 2배로 확장하려는 노력 그리고 하이 레벨에서 코딩을 하려고 하는 요즘의 트렌드에 대해서 강조를 해주신 것 같습니다. Thank you once again for your wonderful presentation.
You're more than welcome. Thank you. Please email me, ianferreira@amd.com.
네, 여러분 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다.